Hey rum fans, welcome back to the channel. Over the last couple of weeks we focused on Barbados rum and Jamaican rum. So the next one in the series we focus on rum from Guyana, Guyanese rum. Now I know a lot of you watching this will be sort of loosely tuning out now because you're thinking, well, there's not much to know about rum from Guyana, Guyanese rum. It's pretty obvious. There's only one distillery there. It's DDL, Demerara Distillers Ltd. Their brand, there is El Dorado. So that is it, really. That's all we need to know. One brand of rum, end of story. However, it's a little bit more in depth than that because while Demerara Distillers Ltd produce Demerara rum, not all rum that comes out of Guyana is actually Demerara rum. Now, what the flippin' hell am I talking about? Of course, it must be, you know, if DDL produced Demerara rum, then, you know, surely all the rum that comes out of Guyana is Demerara rum. There's a GI. There's a geographical indicator with a few laws and a few rules that you have to abide by, which makes quite a lot of the rum, the Guyanese rum, available worldwide, which actually makes it not Demerara rum. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail, not too much detail, but we'll get onto that in a second. But first of all, I want to kind of give you the loose lay of the land with DDL. And if I apologise in this video if I do say El Dorado, but it's just they're one and the same. DDL, Demerara Distillers Ltd, do make El Dorado rum. It is their brand. But don't forget, DDL also produce a shed load of rum that is sold to the likes of E&A Shear, for instance, you know, to get blended up in like the likes of Black Tot, that get blended up in pusses and all that sort of stuff. You know, DDL produce a shed load of rum outside of their own brand, which is El Dorado. But the first bit of knowledge I really want you to focus on is actually a lot of people naturally assume that, you know, they've heard of the big still, the Port Morant still, and they just naturally assume all rum that comes out of DDL comes off the Port Morant still or a wooden still. However, DDL has 10 stills, okay, 10, and only 3 of those are wooden. And actually you'd be forgiven, or a lot of people don't realise that actually 3 of them are wooden. They're kind of, because the big 2, as I say, is Port Morant and Versailles. So Port Morant is the double retort pot still, Versailles is the single retort pot still. But what a lot of people don't realise is that Enmore, the column coffee still, well, that's actually wooden as well. So they are the big 3 stills that you probably would have heard of, but you would naturally assume that all rum that is produced by DDL comes off one of those 3 stills. But you'd be mistaken because, as I said, there are 10 stills and we've covered 3 of them. The other stills DDL have, they have 2 4-column French Saval stills. They have 3 2-column coffee stills named Diamond 1, 2 and 3. Then they have a high ester double retort still and the rectifying still. And I dare say, actually, and I don't know this for a fact, but reading between the lines, I dare say a lot of the rums that you kind of know and taste and love that have sort of those Demerara vibes to them that you would associate, you know, actually there's quite a bit of distillate that comes off that kind of high ester double retort still as well. And the other point I want to make here as well is that don't naturally assume that El Dorado, the brand that they sell, that they market and sell, don't automatically assume that these are just the wooden stills, and they use the copper, the column stills, the stainless steel column stills as well for the other rum that they produce, because you'd be mistaken. For instance, as far as I'm aware, the El Dorado 3, and I might be wrong in this, I'm really sorry, but as far as I'm aware, this doesn't have any of the wooden stills in it at all. I think that is just the column stills. One of them, I can never remember which way round it is, but one of them, so the Port Morant, the Versailles and the Enmore, one of them only gets used, I think it's the Versailles, only gets used for the 15 and the 21, something like that. Whereas Port Morant goes into all of them. Port Morant's like the more used, or produces the more rum that gets used in a lot of the DDL range. But again, another point I want to make, don't naturally assume that the El Dorado 5 that's down there, I think somewhere, might be up in the back bar. Yeah, it's, I can see it. Don't naturally assume the 5 and the 8 is that just aged up for another 3 or 5 years. It is not. Don't naturally assume the 12 is just that aged up for another 4 years. They're really not. They are all different blends of different stills. So for instance, when you drink the El Dorado 15-year-old, you are drinking a very different blend to what goes in the El Dorado 12. And by blend, I don't just mean ages of rum, I mean the stills as well. So let's go back to what I said virtually at the top of the video. As I say, there is only one distillery in Guyana, and that is DDL, and they produce Demerara rum. However, not all rum that comes from Guyana is Demerara rum. So how does that work? What is all that about? Well, the simple fact is, unbeknown to a lot of people, Guyana actually has a GI, a geographical indicator, with laws and regulations that all rum worldwide must adhere to be classed as a Demerara rum. Not Guyanan rum, but a Demerara rum. And that's what people miss, because they see Guyana rum on the bottle and they automatically assume it's going to have those lovely, rich and robust Demerara vibes that they're kind of used to. But actually, that's not often the case. We've seen it in my Discord, you know, many times where people have bought a bottle from another bottler and it's just, well, it tastes nothing like what I'm used to. So the simple fact is, while it may come off Port Morant, while it might have the still, it isn't Demerara rum. So let's shallow dive into this GI. There's many parts to it. You don't need to get that involved in that. I'm just going to give you a couple of brief sort of hinters, which kind of give a massive part to what Demerara is. So for instance, we have two official grades of Demerara rum. We have light and medium body, which will come off the column stills. And then we have heavy bodied Demerara rum, which obviously comes off the pot stills. Now, to explain the next bit, you kind of have to understand how rum works, and you should do if you've gone down this journey, but basically you distill rum, the ABV that it comes off the still at will start off at sort of maybe 90s, but it's sort of like 80% ABV for a long while before it massively drops off. Okay, so the bulk of the rum is coming off anywhere 78% ABV to 82% ABV. That'll be the predominant sort of hearts, if you like, of the rum. So just remember that. So basically you've got this rum at this high ABV that will then maybe cut back with a little bit of water there and then, but probably more like it. Obviously it's kind of mixed with when the rum starts dropping off the tails. When you get into the tails, it sort of dips down to like 20% ABV, you know, maybe 30%. Depends what time you sort of cut it off. So it's not all just 80% rum, for example. You have got varying ABVs, but actually what you're going to cask will be quite a high ABV. Now, hopefully that set the scene for what I'm about to tell you, because quite a lot of bottlers, quite a lot of other blenders, if you like, will buy those casks. And then what will happen, they'll get shipped to another country, say Holland, in Shear, and then they will get brought down to ABV there. That is not Demerara rum, okay? It can still be classed as Guyanese rum or rum from Guyana, but it's not Demerara rum. As soon as you blend a rum outside of the GI, because the next part of the GI is massively important and massively crucial. But as soon as you blend a rum, even if you blend it with, say like Black Tot, for instance, Black Tot is blended with Barbados and Jamaican rum. It doesn't matter if it's Demerara rum in there, it ceases to become Demerara rum as soon as you blend it with anything else that's come out of the GI, come out of the geographical region. So here's the kicker and the big telltale of whether it's a Demerara rum or not, because the only physical way it can be a Demerara rum is if it is then brought down to ABV, 40, 45, whatever it's bottled at, by the water from, it's deionized, but from water from the Demerara River. And they're so passionate about that because they believe, and they truly do believe, that that water tastes so unique and actually enhances the flavour of the rum. So if it's been brought down to ABV from water, say in Holland, say in the UK, say wherever else in the world, it is not Demerara rum. To be a true Demerara rum, it has to be brought down to ABV from water off the river Demerara, which then obviously means that it has to be bottled in that area as well, bottled in that region, because obviously if you're going to bring it down to ABV there, you're going to bottle it at the same time. So again, anything that's not bottled within the region, or the geographical region of a DDL, of a Guyanese rum, it ceases to become a Demerara rum. Now, I say that because I want to emphasize the point. There are some rums that you fall in love with and you just really do think in your head, oh, Guyanese rum, I'm going to absolutely love that because I love this and I love that. That probably won't be the case. And as I say, unless it is blended and bottled and brought down to ABV by that Demerara water, then you probably won't get the same taste profile that you will know and love. But that is not to say that the likes of Bristol, the likes of E&A Shear, do not buy phenomenal casks and they've got equally as good, but if not different water. You know, that's not to say you are not, there's substandard rums, that's really not. I just want to get to the point, when you associate those rich, those robust rums that you get from El Dorado, don't naturally assume that you are going to get that same profile off any other rum, because it's the water from the River Demerara that actually goes a long way to making these what these are. So I hope you kind of understood that. Slightly more complex than what you may be thinking. Just go out there and try them. Try a bottle from like Bristol, try a bottle from SBS maybe, but then try it against, and I'm talking like Port Morant. Try a Port Morant from SBS, try a Port Morant from Bristol, and then try a Port Morant from El Dorado. Because in theory, there should be very different things, purely because of the water and the blending.